you're confused where you are, this is after the show. Basically, it's a bunch of different actors, set designers, and also the writers of the show. And we're here to basically answer any of your questions that you have about the writing process and about the current design of the show. So starting off, hi, my name is Chris Gibb. I was the co-producer and also the actress in the role of Electra, and I'm going to be your moderator for tonight.
Woo. Hi, I'm Grace, and I'm a freshman at MIT, and I was Story Jack.
Woo. I'm Mandy. I was co-set designer, co-TV.
And I was the other half of that. I'm Jacob.
Hi, I'm Zach. I was one of the book writers.
Hi, I'm Dre. I was one of the book writers, and for this production, I was the ropes technician.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie. I was the composer and also did sound for this production, and yeah.
Hi, I'm Tauntaun. I'm also one of the co-writers, and I did jack shit for this production.
Okay. So let's start out with just talking about how was the writing process like?
Sure.
The writing process started in January of 2011 after a bunch of folks got together at Cinderella's after a production of Jekyll and Hyde and said it'd be cool to write a musical about MIT. We worked on the writing for about a year. Froze book in November 1st of 2011. Froze lyrics December 1st of 2011. And along the way had 3 workshop readings. Went through, I think, 28 or more drafts of the script.
Yeah, it was basically 1 year from conception to production from IEP to IEP.
Yeah, it was crazy how many late nights we had writing the show. But it was really awesome. We actually got a lot of feedback from people at the stage workshops that you guys were talking about, and helped feed that back in. And then there were about 7 of us on the writing team working together to make that happen. You have anything to add?
Anyone who was our friends heard nothing but this show for that whole year.
Yeah. Along the way, we did a few things to try to help incorporate feedback from the MIT hacking community. We held a reading in a special location that only hackers could know about or something like that. I think during the years that we were writing, Julie and I were both second semester seniors, and then after I was a master's student, so I basically punted my entire master's project to second semester. Julie had a crazy time. She was living in Connecticut and commuted down to Boston a lot.
Yeah, I think I spent half my weekends that semester, I was graduated, coming back to Boston and working on the writing with everyone. And then during the IAP, when I was music directing the show, I would go to work like 9 to 5, and every night I would work like 5 p.m. to like 2 a.m., like orchestrating and finishing up music stuff during IAP. Do that on Saturday, like 9 a.m. to like 4 a.m., like go to Boston on Sunday for orchestra rehearsal and vocal rehearsal, and then repeat times 4 until the opening of the show. It was ridiculous. So, huge amount of work, and like everyone in here put so much work into it. I'm so glad it's a thing, and I'm so glad you guys are here.
Yeah, good job, recent cast and crew. That was awesome.
So, I guess now we can open up for questions.
Part of the panelists, we can ask all the writers who are current design. Yeah.
So this is just a clarification. You said that the music was frozen in, the book was frozen in. What does the book mean, and what is frozen in?
Sure. By the book, we meant all of the spoken dialogue in the show. We wanted to put a freeze date on that so that we wouldn't be tempted to edit it past any point. So that when auditions happened, people could be secure knowing that what they were auditioning with was the material that they would be using in the actual show. The reason lyrics freeze and music freeze were a little later was so that we would have a little bit of extra time to fine-tune that. But we wanted to make sure that was before auditions for the first production.
So, like, how much of the lyrics were done when you, like, frozen the book? I mean,
I think the majority. The lyrics were frozen at that point, and the music was frozen too. What was still being done after that date was orchestration.
Right.
Yeah. When but I think by the time we froze the book, there were some lyrics that still got revision. I very clearly remember that Building, I believe, was one of the last songs we finished and went through one of the most revisions.
The end bit of Distraction Tango, I think, was the actual last set of lyrics written, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The little section that sounds less like the song than everything else.
You're just...
You're acting paranoid again.
Hey, stop that, what, I?
That nonsense.
Hey there, Sergeant. This is Sergeant. I remember some of the lyrics from that section too. One of the exchanges that got cut that I really liked was Electra saying to Sprinkles, "Stop trying to be so hardcore, Sergeant."
But we thought that it's not about dancing. It's better.
That was sort of my question for everyone. Is there anything that got cut for time or continuity or something that you were still really attached to?
Like still today?
Or
like, damn it! Why did we put that so I don't know.
I know. I remember something that was cut that no one liked at all. There was going to be a song in the cop scene that comes right before Platonic Friends again, where they sing about how happy they were or mostly Claw was going to sing about how happy they were that they had saved students by preventing a gas bypass explosion in the chemistry lab. But we were like, no. Also, there were, I think, too many songs at that point.
There were some, I remember there was a verse in Let's Get Those Fuckers that was actually cut kind of early. We used to have 4 points of escalation instead of 3. And one of them involved, Cyborg?
We'll have to think outside the dome.
We'll have to think outside the dome.
That was probably some lyrics that was, man, I'm really sad.
Hacker sniffing drones?
Yeah, they were making robots.
Drones.
Yes, hackers.
Yeah, something like
With
that.
sentient machines, they'll find them quarantined.
Oh, jeez.
Those hackers' plans will soon be
I can't
overthrown.
believe you remember this.
We actually found some of our early lyric demos for Platonic Friends again yesterday. I was listening to them. And it was really interesting. We still have a lot of the recordings from demo lyrics that we made that if you're a super hardcore fan, you can come talk to us about listening to.
It's really great when they come up on shuffle. Julie's voice putting lyrics in.
Yeah, so a lot of the way that we used to do music and lyrics is Julie would come up with a melody and put in nonsense lyrics. And so I remember the nonsense lyrics for Counterbalance was around Thanksgiving, and it was something like, "The pie I am eating."
It's true. My roommate must have thought I was crazy.
Yeah, I think I have another question. Pick up.
Hi, 2D friends. Can you describe the process for coming up with this lovely set?
We had a lot of ideas that we had to pare down at the beginning, so we actually started generating ideas before we were even selected officially. So that was happening. Mandy said that she really didn't want a symmetric set, and I was just very adamant that the orchestra not be seen. So those were just the sort of the 2 absolutes that we started with, and
Hey, what do you have against the orchestra?
I have. It's distracting to see a conductor, I find.
Really?
But
It's also easier for sound.
it is also right. Exactly. I would just make a job. But so that was it. We had several preliminary sketches.
We had an idea for a dome on the ground instead of in the air at one point.
Yes.
Some.
Originally, the dome was also going to be climbable, but then after speaking with the directors, they wanted this more skeletal look, sort of like it's being constructed, like the story is being constructed along with the setting. So that was really cool, and we ran with that idea, and that's how you get the set. But
Were there any funny challenges about building this set?
Well, a 10-foot high platform was a fun challenge. It was originally 8 feet, but
That's my fault.
but for reasonable rope work, we really needed more. Yeah, that was also a fun process.
Yeah, so for this, we wanted to, I put in my name for ropes technician. I was like, all right, Durstaff, what do you want? And they said, whatever you can get approved. So I actually wrote up like probably it came out to be around 25 page document to CAC describing like anything from rappelling, ascending, dancing on rope, blah blah blah, like gym climbing ropes, and a lot of what I wanted to do was anchoring off the La Sala pipe grid, and I tried to make an argument that there was precedent because MTG has done this in the past. They had a Bat Boy rappel in 2004 where 3 people rappelled from Space Dock, which you can't see back there. But EHS is changed a little, and something OSHA compliance. But they let us rig off our own temporary
5,000
structure.
pounds. 5,000 pounds. It needed to be rated for 5,000 pounds.
But they let us rig off our own temporary structure, so we asked sets to increase the height by 2 feet, so we could do counterbalance.
It was fun. We raised it with 15 people. If you guys don't know, we built it on the ground, and then we used a whole bunch of cast members to raise them up. So, anyways.
Can you describe the process of revision between the original production and the revival script and spoiler we received?
So one of the things, I unfortunately have less time than I had when I was originally writing this. So one of the things that we actually tried to do was to maintain the same music. But there were some things that we wanted to change the feel, particularly Wank Wank Wank.
Yeah. So actually, I don't think it was a time issue. More so that we wanted to try to fix a couple things. Well, one of our goals while we were doing revisions was to change as little as possible while accomplishing the goals we wanted to accomplish. One part of the script that always bothered me in the original version was the end of Wank Wank Wank. The Kepler transition from being like, haha, fuck them all, to like, oh shit, what did I do? I felt like really, really fast in the original version, and it just would flip like this. And also Kuro's character arc was confusing in that spot. And so we added some lyrics that ended up not being heard at all, because people are like talking over it. Maybe if you had a keen ear and came a couple nights, you could hear that the lyrics were different.
But also that end section was also changed.
Yeah, and then we also had a goal to try to revise Piston's character a little bit, because something we got back from feedback from people is they felt like Piston was kind of lost in the ensemble. And so that's why we gave Piston the like line about tackling, and also the blow the door wide open. So that moment never really worked in the original version, but I thought it worked both of those changes worked really well here.
Yeah.
The directors did a good job with that, and the actors. Was there anything else that we revised?
We added some things for Kuro.
And for Tess.
And I don't remember any for Tess, but I remember for Kuro we added some moments where Kuro makes some poor decisions. We're disregarding the health or well-being of other members involved in the hack earlier on. The moment where Ryan asks Kuro for a lighter to light Faraday on fire. Or in the original script, Kuro and Ryan help carry Faraday off stage to a place where Faraday can get more rest. We changed that a little bit here where Kuro instead gets caffeine to keep Faraday awake. We wanted to show that Kuro was a little more reckless than was portrayed in the original script, and was perhaps a little more dubious at times.
Yeah, the Tess thing was in back in the day, because it always bothered me.
Okay, yeah.
It always bothered me that Tess seemed like equally oblivious, even though she's supposed to be like, you know, a third perspective on that whole situation. And so just that one line of where she's like, Kuro, I think you felt left out. Or that was really important to me.
Oh, and I remembered some other changes we made. These don't change any of the feeling, but in some of the lyrics in Hackers on the Roof, we noticed that the original cast stumbled over a few of them sometimes, the ensemble lyrics, just because of some of the wording, so we changed around some words to help emphasize.
Same with Novembat. There was like a couple things we changed in the background to try to make it more clear and audible, but...
Also, the reference to Athena cues was no longer relevant.
It was actually no longer relevant by the first production.
Yeah.
Because pharaohs.
Could you tell us the conception of the Novembat?
Why is the Novembat in existence? I'm going to try to make this sound as unhazy and weird as possible. So there's a certain living group on campus that shall not be named.
And
that,
it's not a hive mind.
That enforces the November rule, the idea that a freshman and an upperclassman shouldn't do anything sexual before November 1st by having a physical bat, like a baseball bat. And
or a wiffle ball bat, something soft and non-harmful.
It was really a wiffle ball bat, I believe. And when we were talking about this, I said something Novembat, and
I think it might have been incidental.
And Zach misheard and thought it meant Novembat, and then we realized that we really had something going there. And Daniel
wrote the original lyric.
Yeah.
The first pass of the
I don't remember.
Okay, I don't think we did.
We did not. I remember we did the background.
Yeah. So there's a lyricist who's not here, Daniel Levine, who wrote a lot of at least probably half the lyrics, if not
hardcore tooling.
Yeah, the songs that you probably remember. And then oftentimes he would do a first pass at a lot of songs, and then Scripps would come and take the songs and make them sound more in character. So Daniel did Novembat, Zach and I did a second pass and wrote all of the stuff in the background. I think it was always our idea to make the Novembat never have a true physical form, that it was something that someone always imagined it in terms of weirdness.
However,
in the original production, we had the Novembat appear on stage and was controlled by the ensemble members. And when we were doing props for that, we just made random shit. There's a lobster claw that the Novembat had, and tentacles, and
there was pop out from behind.
And there
was also a proto Novembat. It was an enormous trash bag filled with screaming freshmen.
Yeah, so we had this idea.
It was like Chinese dragon style trash bag.
We had this idea that during Platonic Friends again, the Novembat would come out and it would be like a Chinese dragon. But we sucked at implementing it. So what ended up happening was there was a bunch of, we stuffed the whole unnamed haxensemble underneath this tiny trash bag, and they counted down 3, 2, 1, and they just started screaming.
They were also trying to run, but kept bumping into each other under the bag.
Footage of this exists somewhere because someone thought it was funny.
I also believe Jessica Noss was under the trash bag, so you can ask her.
So in the audio recording, Kepler goes to the vending machine for a chocolate taco. I heard that in the script it's a popsicle. Could you explain the decision-making process?
It is in the script as a Pop-Tart.
And always has been.
The Choco was a choice made on the part of Kepler.
Yeah. Miles decided to change it to Choco Taco because in the original production we had a night where both Miles and Egons and whoever in the cast wanted to learn to repel. And Miles came back with a Choco Taco during that, and he just liked Choco Tacos or something.
It stayed.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the very interesting names for the different characters? I get some of them, but not all of them.
The cops we wanted to all name as puns.
Coffee and
donut related puns. I don't remember if they were the first character's name, but the puns were Dee Dee Calf, Frappuccino, Berry Claw, which only one of those names gets listed, and then Brucey Sprinkles, which there's...
Oh, shit.
So
we looked up the Wikipedia page for sprinkles, and it said on the Wikipedia page that in Boston that Jimmy's, the rainbow sprinkles, are called Bruceys. And we were like, this is perfect. It's Boston. We need a name, Bruce E.
And then we checked the Wikipedia page in October of that year.
A month later, and it had been deleted.
I didn't know about that.
I know it got deleted.
In fact, I believe that this story is also in the original program as my bio because I was
something about Wikipedia.
I can also speak to Tess, Kepler, and Perot. I was being a stickler about coming up with some type of related name for those 3 characters, and in the original script they were just called upperclassmen, adversary, and lead. And people were like, okay, we need to stop doing this. And so Tauntaun proposed Tess, and I was like, fine, as long as all the other ones get named after exoplanet satellites. And Kepler and Corot are both exoplanet satellites.
Tess was also
And Tess is,
All 3 of them.
all of them. And now Tess has a launch date in like 2018 or something now. Like Tess actually has a launch date now. It didn't at the time.
And as for the upperclassmen, they were originally going to be named after the arches around, you know those arches that are around Killian Court that say names of various famous people from scientific history?
Like Faraday.
Like Faraday. I think Faraday is up there.
Yeah.
They were all going to be like that, and then we changed to just something sciencey related, so TensorWorks. Also, it's a cool name. Why not? We wanted Electra and Mags to be related to each other in some way. I think they went through the most name revisions. Their original names, as I remember them, were Abri and Chrome for chromatic aberration.
I think their names were always the most polarizing. People either loved them or hated them.
Yeah, and then the rest of the characters got named based on like things that they would do.
So all of the characters' code names were mostly very obvious puns to them, except Muse. What's up with Muse?
That was, I think Muse was because in the original lyrics for that song, we had said Flux to Muse because we thought it sounded good and fit there.
And Tensor hadn't been named
Yeah,
yet.
Tensor hadn't been named. Tensor, yeah.
Also, it's sort of... Our original conception of Tensor was very, like, nerdy Course 18 D&D-ish, and Muse sort of works for that.
According to Russell's dramaturgy note, Muse was in some way named Tensor was in some way named after one of the Muses.
This is probably pretty possible because we did have names for a lot of the characters early on that changed. I don't actually remember what the original name for Tensor was.
This is a question for everyone, but like, is there anything in the story or the songs that is actually personally connected to you that is like personally important?
That, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear very well. That we personally connected with? Okay.
I'll start by saying that no character was based off of a single person. That's a question we get a lot. We've had a lot of people come up to us and be like, hey, was that based off of me? And we're like, no, it wasn't. And a lot of the characters are based around like people who seem to exist in MIT communities. A good example of that is Hunter. Is that there tends to be like kind of this like big, like, lack of a better word, like alpha female motherly presence who's really mean to you, but also with the best of intentions, and so the meanness is kind of kindness. This is freakishly exists across a lot of living groups at MIT. In terms of personal connections, I'll let someone else say something.
I would say that even though I was a senior when I started writing Hack Punt Tool, I definitely kind of really wanted to be hardcore by writing a musical, so I'm going to say that I connect with Billy.
And this question's too hard to answer.
Oh man, I don't know. I personally connect with much of the current production just because I know so many people in it and I'm so personally invested in the sets. So there's that. I don't know about a storyline or a character. I love not theory, so that's the thing. Yeah.
So I personally relate to like a lot of the different aspects of the show, like let's see. I don't know if I could example that isn't like too personal, but like so I don't know if that tells you much about it, but I feel like a lot of people like think that this play is just, or like sometimes people get the impression that it's just for East Campus. Well, I live in McCormick, so like it's definitely not true. I'm basically the other end of the spectrum, right? Yeah. And so I definitely also like strongly relate to this like musical as a whole.
Yeah, that was something we were talking about, in which the directors really tried to emphasize was that like this is about in theater groups we also punt our work to do theater. It's not just about hacking per se. It's about this MIT experience of being host all the time, but also finding other things to do and. Right. Exactly. So I think that was really cool.
Yeah.
I guess. So I'm a freshman, right? So I don't. I mean, my character's super badass, hardcore, upperclassman, but I'm so frosty. I'm so frosty.
You're a badass.
Yeah. So I guess my character and I both like donuts. That's probably about it. Not to say this wasn't an amazing experience. Someday I'll be hardcore or something like that, but that's true. That's true.
So I found out about this musical when I was in high school, and I was looking at the MIT blog site, and one of the actors for Connor Burden had wrote a blog post. It was like, "Oh man, I'm in this musical called Hack Punt, full about MIT students." I was like, "That sounds so cool." Never ever going to be done again even if I do get into MIT. And then it just happened that this is my senior year and it's my senior IAP, and it happened. And I was like, holy shit! Oh my god! I'm able to be in it. So that was pretty exciting, and for me, knowing a lot of people in the community all around Hack Punt School, it's been really great. Yeah, and I guess for character wise, I'm queer and I really like dancing, so.
I'm not sure if this question is very answerable, because I know that the choreographer for the current production isn't here, and I don't know how involved y'all were with Yeah, I was curious what the feelings were for choreo on many of the songs, because I haven't seen the choreo for the original. If there's anything you can say
can you
about
ask that question in a different way?
I don't have a question. I just want to hear you talk about choreo.
I think I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
So, first of all, I thought the choreo for this production was really great. I especially loved the cops. The choreo in Let's Get Those Fuckers was amazing. And I think, generally the songs were each so stylized and had such strong personalities that it was really easy to get a feeling of oh, well, this song clearly should have this kind of movement. As opposed to anything more specific than that, but yeah, the songs themselves carried so much personality that as a choreographer, it was actually pretty easy to immediately get a sense of what flavor of movements would feel appropriate, what would push it more silly versus more earnest and serious.
In that, then was there anything that was particularly different in this production versus the previous production that they clearly had picked a different interpretation of the song?
I was going to say Counterbalance.
Yeah.
I thought Counterbalance this time was really beautiful. But so the basis, I mean, I'm sure you can speak more to this, but the basis is Bandaloop, which is a dance troupe that combines rock climbing and rappelling with dancing. And
yeah, Tauntaun and I actually took a week-long workshop with them.
Yeah, it was super great.
And since then, I've definitely wanted to try to choreograph Counterbalance specifically, doing some type of Bandaloop movements.
Yeah.
And during the last set, we had a very different set. We had 6 rolling platforms that each were different heights and about the size of that one back there. So there was a big set, big rolling platforms, and we just had the actors step down progressively as we moved the platforms and read them. So the last one didn't involve anything where anyone was suspended.
And as a general effect, it was interesting, and at the time, I loved it because it was the first time this was ever happening. But I think I prefer this version. This one was really cool.
Definitely in the original production, building was different. Tauntaun added little, during the breakout sections when Tess and Billy are singing about each other, or, not to each other, but about each other. Tauntaun added choreo in the background with the ensemble members, so it made it feel more dreamy. And I always remember like Piston and Connor cuddling in the background of one of these scenes, and then they like broke apart and was like, "You." So there was building was more dynamic in the original one, and this one had other like fun little things that they threw in too.
Yeah. Last time in building, the choreo involved like banging together tools and building materials rhythmically and dancing with them, so that was fun.
One of the changes in the first version was gender for some of the characters. I was wondering if the characters were being written to be playable to be any gender, or if they were written with specific genders in mind and then like switched auditions and kind of like.
So from a musical perspective, the only character that we specifically wrote with the intention that they could be cast of either gender was Story Jack. That's not to say though that like if a person has the vocal range, that like totally, we're really excited to see how the dynamic would play with different genders in the show.
I loved all the gender decisions.
Yeah,
for this
And
production.
we also wrote a note specifically encouraging the directorial staff to make whatever choices like fit with whoever auditions. We know that MTG typically has a more female identifying audition pool than male identifying, and so it makes more sense to put more female actors in roles.
I was specifically hoping to see some inclusion of them, their, they pronouns, because that is something that's now outdated in our script, as I feel like that's a lot more common at MIT now than when we wrote it. And I personally really liked I really like the gender flops too. When we were originally writing it, one of the secondary writers, who is actually here tonight, if you met him, Itaru, was really concerned about having Kuro and Kepler be opposite genders because he thought there'd be a lot of sexual tension. But what ended up happening is making them same gendered made it like very sexual tensiony.
I can't spell bromance without romance for a reason.
And so that switch, I think, like it didn't. I think that the arc was still very much about their friendship. I liked what Kim did with the vocals. It was nice. Oh, Kim is here now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's made a heart.
Okay.
How's it going?
What was behind the decision to cut out the song in which Kuro and Kepler professed their love to each other?
It was with a heavy heart.
This is Jasmine. She wrote fan fiction.
You guys talk about the evolution of Sprinkle's admonition yet? Because that, I believe it started out as very different from what you ended up with. Like, there was a whole other plot there.
Right.
That was going to
Oh, yeah.
be got totally ditched.
I can't remember
Kim
much about
reminded me
it.
of
I
what
vaguely remember
there was
this.
the dynamic with Sprinkles and Kuro.
Yeah, we originally thought that it might be fun to have Kuro and Sprinkles kind of have a like rivalry history with each other. Like Kuro was always the hacker that escaped, and Sprinkles was always trying to catch like, the hackers, but specifically really wanted to nail Kuro. And we found that just it slowed down the opening of the second act, and we didn't really like it, and so we dropped it and turned Sprinkle's admonition into what it is now, which is a patter song based somewhat on people's real experiences with punishment for getting hacking, and some totally fake ones. Hopefully no one's been implanted with permanent tracking devices.
It's so Get Out.
Or had to catch rats with their bare hands.
Has the MIT police ever seen this?
Yeah. In fact, for the first production, I believe we invited MIT police, and I don't know if any actually came, but we offered free tickets to anyone who was a member of the MIT police department.
We did get one MIT police officer who showed up to see the show. Yeah.
We did run the script by Dave Barber before we froze it because we were worried about portraying cops in a good, in a way that like no one would be offended. And Dave Barber just loved it. He was like, I can imagine cops saying some of these things. Well, it's maybe because they did. But, and we actually invited EHS as well. I think that there's someone from EHS coming next week to see it. There's a good story from the original production where the way that we did the blimp in the original one is we did it using space dock, and so suddenly the like a curtain or something, like it would come out from behind a curtain, and the police would stand up on space dock, which you can't see. It's like a second level deck up there, and in order to get up there, they had to run from down here all the way up. And they were dressed as police officers, so they just go sprinting through the student center, and apparently they got a lot of like concerned looks, including from like, you know, a campus detail officer.
Musical numbers like based on whether I've heard this from some people that some of the musical numbers were like inspired by other musical numbers, so like Distraction Tango, I think maybe Tango Maureen, things like that. Was that true? And so, what are the references?
So they're not references per se. If we were going for a reference, we probably would have quoted like little snippets more literally. But yeah, it's definitely true that we listened to a lot of other musicals as inspiration for this. And this is my first time ever writing a musical, so I was kind of flying blind a little bit, kind of making it up as I went along. And of course, like that's kind of what a composer does. Like there's a chord progression that thousands of other songs use, but maybe you like this from that song, and like, oh, like, yeah, I really like that cool rhythm, and like I'll add this melody that I made up. And suddenly, like, something that combined elements from a lot of your inspiration is something new. So Tango Maureen, you're right, that was one of the ones for Distraction Tango that I listened to. There's also a gospel number in Urinetown, which has very similar chord progression to Target the Dome. Let's see, what else?
Building was inspired by a song from Merrily We Roll Along, which is a Sondheim show. It's, what is it? Opening Doors is the name of the song, and they use a lot of noises in their background while they're working, and they also progress time. So that one was highly, I don't think we had any other song inspirations for that one specifically, just because it had to fulfill such a unique function in the show.
And then,
World of the Hacker, I'd written the lyrics with a different, with 4/4 time in mind. And I remember you heard it and thought it sounded better 3/3, like a sea shanty.
Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3.
And so that ended up changing that. And I don't know where you got the idea for the melody for that. But
I thought it was from Nightmare Before Christmas.
But you'd never seen it.
I had never seen it.
And we made sure of that.
That's right, because we didn't want to have Nightmare Before Christmas.
But when I remember when I'd written the lyrics, the song that was stuck in my head was Town Meeting Song from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. Which you can, I think, sing Town Meeting with the World of the Hacker lyrics in some spots.
Sometimes.
At the beginning of Counterbalance Repel, there's like the ba 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 ba, that chord progression. I'm pretty sure that was something we borrowed from Aida, but I was definitely going for like an epic 80s rock kind of thing.
Bye everyone, I'm flying back to London.
Oh shit! Seriously? Okay.
There was some of the orchestration in Platonic was inspired by
Avenue Q.
Avenue Q for
because we really
Platonic
liked how sparse and like just concise and comedically timed the orchestration in that show is. And I think there was a little bit of inspiration for Hackers on the Roof from
West Side Story.
From Act 1 finales of many shows.
Yes.
West Side Story, Urinetown.
I've always admired the way that composers, when there's like one person says a thing and another person says a thing or sings a thing, and then you've got a group of people and now they all say it together and it still sounds great. And that was my musical goal for Hackers on the Roof. So.
Hey Grace, what was the most challenging thing for you in the show?
For me specifically?
Yes, for you. I just want you to talk because you're lovely.
Okay. I guess I was really intimidated auditioning because I had never watched the show on YouTube, and I still haven't done that. Partially because I didn't want to be artistically influenced. I'll do it after this show. But yeah, I was just, I guess, intimidated that there are people who know a lot about this show. Yeah, but I'm really glad. I don't know. So I was intimidated that I didn't know enough about the show to create a convincing narrator character, which is, I find, pretty tough. But yeah, it was so, everyone was really awesome and supportive and didn't make me feel inferior in any way, which was awesome.
The use of StoryJack in this production was very different from the original, and I really like this one.
Everyone keeps telling me I'm really different from the original.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
It's very good.
I think that's great because StoryJack is a character where it's like in a lot of ways it's kind of a blank slate, so you really can bring a lot to that character. So, bravo.
One of the things the directors really tried to do is that it's an interesting thing because like the show is such a bit of a different environment from when it was first written. Because like now, like we've seen a version before that was been with the same group that has been with somebody even with some of the same people, and they very much were aware of like, hey guys, like you could know that every single word in the show and every single note, or you could come in with no idea what this show is about and think punting is about football, and like we're gonna make sure you feel welcome and happy.
I think that's been something that's really interesting to me and kind of like blowing my mind is that like people come to see the show and some people in the audience actually know it already. Like, what? It's a new feeling for me. How are we doing for time?
5:23. Doing pretty well. Probably have another like 10 minutes.
And if people have more questions.
I have a question for set designers. Yes. For different things. So you guys also created the show, correct?
Yes.
So you guys were also had some contact with lights, some with their set elements. How was working with those in this production?
Lights was at times upset with us because we did not know the exact colors that we were going to use, until fairly late.
Directors, set designers, they thought you know what color. City painters, what color are things going to be? I don't care.
Three times, and I not gave an answer until the fourth.
It's the instant.
Then it was just like neutral tone.
Neutral tones, exactly. That's what we said in that copy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's pretty cool. I was really impressed with the way lights worked. I don't know, like lights had issues with one of the lights stopping working and like just breaking or whatever, and they like pulled together like the night before, and like you guys, I bet you couldn't even tell anything was wrong. Like I'm really impressed with how well lights did. Props was also really cool. They made those watches that had like the lights that turned on and off, like depending on how tight the wristband was.
I appreciated the prop that was just a wristband with a flip phone on it.
Yeah. So it's a really neat experience working with everyone.
we had a lot of cool people involved, and so we didn't have to end up taking on other people's jobs or anything. So that was
There were definitely some aspects of the show where like, do we build the dragon wing? Does props build the dragon wing? Some props like really stepped up and took responsibilities and things like that while we were doing other things. So I also like want to mention ECD. Like Elizabeth, can you raise your hand? This is our assistant technical director, but she helped out with the design process. She basically took on the role of master carpenter, and we didn't have an official one. She did way more work than she signed up for. You see that dome? That dome is like hand cut out of plywood and has slits cut into it so that the pieces slide together instead of just like throwing a bunch of pieces together. It's really, really neat what she was able to do. So, I don't know if that answers. I don't know.
be fun. I'm curious what people's favorite moment of this production was, because I think that's fun to hear. Last time we asked what people's favorite characters were and what people's favorite moments are, and I'm curious to hear what these people think about this production.
I have a favorite moment. So there's like during the distraction tango, when they start like getting in the line behind they're all lined up, and then Story Jack's just like
I love the disco ball. The cops and the disco ball. Yep. Solid lights.
Or they're carrying that input in. They're like, why is there this? Wait, what scene is it used for? I don't remember there being any dancing.
We were working on the sets and being like, wonder what that's going to be. My favorite moment, I think, is in the November song. Just like the choreo is just so perfect, and when they're all together, like clapping together, it's just so perfect.
This wall during November, there's like awesome shadows on the wall.
Yes.
Zach, your favorite moment?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments was when Story Jack took the donut in the beginning. I have to specify the time. The first time Story Jack takes the donut, leading up to the line, "We're out of donuts again," which was definitely something we never intended in the writing, but it worked so well. And seeing the creativity to like make a choice that makes a line make even more sense, and just seeing Story Jack eat donuts.
I think my favorite moment is the scene before Counterbalance. That was actually another revision. We cleaned up that scene a little bit, and I felt like for the first time that scene finally worked, and it was heartfelt, and it was beautiful. I liked it a lot.
All of Platonic Friends Again is genius, just amazing. But I have to say the part with the blanket is pretty amazing.
I really like the cops dance this time around. I remember at first being like, the cops are pretty, watching the original production, I was like, the cops are pretty great. And then I watched this version, they're doing cartwheels, and the first I see them do cartwheels and jumps, it's like, whoa, what just happened here? It's pretty cool.
Oh, I said the disco ball, but I also love the Platonic Friends Again and the blanket. That one's solid.
I think unless anyone has any final questions. Yes.
What's next for the show? I know you've got a couple more performances, but you thinking down the road?
No, Musical Theater Guild on tour.
Re-putting up the dome every time, a fucking nightmare.
We don't have any particular plans for the show.
We finally have fulfilled our 5-year vendetta of getting good recordings of the show.
Oh my god, thank you to Steam Cable for filming it. So this production is going to be on YouTube along with the original production. We don't have any plans to put it up again. We have the script and score are out for they're on a Creative Commons license, and if there was anyone who was interested in doing the show again, they would be welcome to contact us, and we could arrange something.
A few of us are also working on different projects now. Zach has been working on a cartoon with his brother, which you should all watch, which is the pilot episode's on YouTube right now. It's called Obituary. Chris and I are part of a team that's working on a graphic novel project that also is about a fictional group of MIT hackers. And if you want to buy a Hack Punt Tool shirt to support that project, we'll be selling them afterwards. Julie's been...
Regretfully, I haven't been working on any big composition projects lately, but I'm thinking about it.
And with that, I think this panel is completed.